Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining. We have so much to talk about, so I'm just going to jump right in and we'll start by talking a little bit at first about diagnosis. And I want to direct this question first towards Shanta, since she was diagnosed a long time ago in 2013.
Mhm.
I would like to know a little bit about how you initially coped with your diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer.
It was hard. When I was initially diagnosed, it was I was the second semester into nursing school and working full time. And when I got the diagnosis, I was like, okay, my life is over. So I just like immediately did. I just stopped everything. I didn't stop school, but as far as working, I resigned from my job. I was like, okay, so it's just time to focus on me. So I basically just took the time out to learn as much as I could about the disease, and just try to focus on getting through. Um, Scary at first, but I have to say that I don't want to say the word easy, but I think just having my healthcare team and the support that I had made it seem like it was easy, even though it was hard on my body. Luckily, I didn't have too many side effects from the beginning, but I just took the time out to just focus and to just be as healthy and as best as I can work on myself. So it was just like a mental shift, a physical shift, of course, but it's been 9 years and still learning to focus on me. But I'm a much better person than I was since that initial diagnosis.
Thank you so much, Shanta. And I'm struck by what you said about just feeling like your life was over at that moment. And I wonder if that resonates with any of you and you'd like to add to that about how you responded when you were first diagnosed. Roxana, go ahead.
Sure. So when I was diagnosed with stage four, it was scary because what I remember my oncologist told me was, we're looking at 5 or 10 years for you, and I was just like, I need more than 10. I need more than 5. I have a young child, so it was hard for me. Um, but I've just try to keep that off my mind and block it and keep on going, thriving every day.
Roxana, can you tell me a little bit more when your doctors did say that, did they give you any tools to cope with that time? How did they help you to prepare for what you might expect?
They did talk to me more about an organization based here with Inova Alexandria Hospital, just getting some support groups, and just that's pretty much really about it. Just trying to talk to other women, men that were going through the same diagnosis. So that's about as much they gave me for me to try to learn more about MBC.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Shanta, did you have
Mhm,
something you
yeah.
wanted to add there?
Yeah, that's so weird to me because I kind of had an opposite experience. I wasn't told about the 5 year mark. I was until I went through treatment and I was going for my mastectomy, and my surgeon didn't want me to get the mastectomy because she was like, "Well, people with your stage of cancer don't live past 5 years anyway." So of course, my oncologist never said that. So I go to him. I was like, "Is there something that you're not telling me? Am I about to die?" And he's like, "No, that's not it at all." So my oncologist never gave me that 5 to 10 year talk, so to say. Like we were always optimistic and knowing, even when I had my down period and I've been on a roller coaster these 9 years, they were always positive, and you know, like if this doesn't work, we're going to try something else. So I've never, I guess that kind of kept me going and never like made me put a timeline on it, you know. And it's been 9 years, and I'm grateful for that. Of course, that person who told me the 5 years, I was like, okay, this is my last time seeing her. Thank you for your services, and now I'm moving on because I need my team to believe what I believe, you know, and I need those around me. And I was grateful to have such a great healthcare support system to have the same beliefs as me, you know.
Thanks, Shanta. And I'm wondering if you might want to address this issue. You've also been living with metastatic breast cancer for some time. Were there things that either your healthcare providers or other people in the community were able to do to support you when you were first diagnosed and that you applied to help cope with the diagnosis?
Well, that's a great question. My experience was pretty similar in that it was I go to a smaller team or smaller oncology team, so there were no support groups mentioned. It was just kind of a here's your diagnosis and go ahead and get on with your life. So I would say for me, for that, especially for that first year diagnosed metastatic, it was my church community, my work family, my family that really are the ones that supported and leaned in. And, you know, it was various ways that they helped, whether it was making sure that we were still being taken care of and getting dinner on the table every night or getting out for walks or getting rides to treatment. You know, that there were 1,001 different ways that they helped to make that first year, especially with metastatic back in 2016, to make that livable, survivable, and make the most of that. And then from there, I met someone when I went on a retreat, a casting for recovery retreat. I met a woman who told me about all these great programs that were out there in Facebook groups and support groups. And that's how I started to plug in the advocacy. And that's where I heard about Living Beyond Breast Cancer and the Hear My Voice program. And I think, you know, then it's really expanded and became the women that are probably in this meeting here today or have been at retreat or conferences in the past that have really helped pull me up when I've had those lows and helped educate me when I've had 1,001 questions. And that's been really phenomenal.
So it's been really important, both connecting with your healthcare professionals and just with people in the community to provide support.
Absolutely.
Savannah, I just want to turn to you. You were diagnosed in your late 20s. Can you just tell us a little bit about that experience and where you found initial support as a very young woman coping with metastatic breast cancer when many of your peers may not have been able to understand that experience?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 24. So I didn't expect it at all, obviously. And I really got my support. I live in a small town, so, you know, hearing about young people getting breast cancer just isn't heard of very often here. So I had just graduated from college 2 years before my diagnosis. So I was really trying to like figure out life as this young adult and trying to, you know, get things started in my adult life. And when I was hit with this news, it pretty much changed everything for me. So I kind of just went towards social media, and that's when I started, you know, seeing other young women having breast cancer and things like that, which I still feel like it's a little bit hard to find people to connect with, for me to have, because it's still hard to find people that have metastatic breast cancer at a young age. Usually it's like, you know, an early stage. And so I can still feel alone at times, but I think I really have a great support system at home, family. My cancer center does have a AYA program. So help bridge that gap there for us. So those are things that kind of helped me.
Thanks for sharing that, Savannah. And all of you sort of talked in different ways about ways that your coping may have changed a little bit since that initial shock of diagnosis, that initial feeling of isolation. Um, Roxana, why don't we start with you? Over time, how has your coping style changed? What have you done differently over time?
Well, what I've done differently is that I've definitely been doing more advocacy. I've always in different support groups, trying to support other women and men as well, and just trying to educate myself and help my peers as well, teaching them about living with this disease is what's helped me. And just having the support of my good friends, my family. My son is my number one reason for me to fight every day. So that's pretty much what I've done. I mean, just try to keep myself busy, walking, trying to eat better, and just somehow, thankfully, since I'm no evidence of active disease, I've been able to keep on going and just not had those downtimes as much as I did from the beginning.
Thanks, Roxana. And Shanta, you said something interesting when we first started talking about that there was a piece of it that seemed easier than you expected. Um, can you talk a little bit more? What was it that you expected, and how was it different?
Well, I have witnessed two family members pass from cancer, not breast cancer, because I was the first case in the family, but my grandfather and an uncle. So to me, to hear the word you have cancer, like it automatically brought me back to their suffering of what I had experienced with them. I didn't, luckily that I mean, there has been so many advancements now, and treatments are not as harsh as they were, and there's so many things to combat all the side effects and everything. But that's what I thought. I just automatically brought me back to their suffering, towards the end of their life that I had witnessed. So that's what I thought it was. To me, I always view cancer as being slow death, and it was like my worst dream come true because I was like, okay, I'll die from anything else, but I do not want to have cancer. And of course, what I get diagnosed with cancer. So I'm like, oh my goodness. But treatment has been not bad, not as bad as I thought. You know, like I said, that was my own thinking of it by seeing them struggle and their struggle. So
Thanks, Shanta. And has anyone else found something to be not as hard as they expected?
I'd have to agree with Shanta. Thankfully, I have had not many side effects with my first line of treatment. It's been doable. There's here and there I have pain, but it's been pretty doable. So I'm thankful for that.
Thanks, Roxana. What about something that actually was harder than you expected? And you looked
My
like
hair.
you had a thought when I asked the other question.
So much for my poker face. I think something that was really hard for me. So I was diagnosed in 2016, and by like late 2017, 2018, I was no evidence of active disease. But it seemed like at that time, my side effects from the Ibrance and Faslodex were probably harsher than they had been in like the 12 months before. And so everybody expected me to be so excited and like, oh, you're over it. And, this is fantastic. And for me, it was really hard to use the word, NEAD, as I was still processing, the cancer is still going. It was like waiting for the other shoe to drop. In some ways, it was more painful for me for maybe a year and a half, just that, as I lived through that stable period. And now I would, give my entire right arm to go back to being stable and no evidence of active disease. But, I think that was just a word that we throw around and we use, and it's a great place to be. And I hope, as many people as possible get there. But it was also really hard mentally to deal with.
Thanks for addressing that, Anne, because actually one of our participants was kind of asking and wanting to know from Roxana about that experience of having no evidence of disease and how that feels, because I think you mentioned that, Roxana, when you were speaking.
Yeah. No, it was hard. I mean, when they told me, like I was saying, 5 to 10 years, that was the hard part, and it took me a while to just kind of, I just block it. I don't, like I said, I think the no evidence of active presently since I was diagnosed, since I got my ovaries removed, has been helpful mentally for me. So I feel like I'm somewhat okay, but I have my days. So I just try to keep on going and just blocking it somehow, keep myself busy, and keep on advocating for everyone as much as I can.
Thank you. So I know we have a mix here of people who were diagnosed with de novo metastatic breast cancer from the start, um, and people who had a recurrence. And so I just want to ask, for those who had an early stage breast cancer diagnosis, how was the experience of the metastatic diagnosis different for you? Did you feel more prepared, less prepared? Um, I think I'll address that to you, Anne. I think you had a recurrent disease.
Yeah, I was first diagnosed in 2009, and I was 39 years old. And I remember my oncologist told me it was early in the year, and he's like, it's going to be an awful year, but you're going to get through it and you're going to be fine. I think we'll get you, you'll do 5 years, you'll be fine, and you'll do tamoxifen, and life will go on. And so in the 6th year, when I was diagnosed metastatic, you think prepared. This is the 4th time I've lost my hair. I'm still not prepared for that. Every time it's still uncomfortable and awkward. But I think when he diagnosed me in 2016, and it was lobular, and it had spread to my bones, and a pericardial effusion, and he used the words like evil and difficult to predict and tough to treat, and it was a lot more gloom and doom. And I'm again been here another 6 years, so that's pretty phenomenal in his world of tracking everything. But in my world of watching my kids grow up and my career and my marriage and life going on, I want more than 6 years. And so I think that there are some things that maybe got easier. I'm really good at, figuring out what to eat when you have constipation, and what to eat when you have diarrhea, and how to handle nausea and all the side effects. But I think that there's still that whole mental side of things that are tough to juggle.
Yeah, I can imagine hearing your doctor use those kinds of words to describe the cancer could feel really scary and devastating. And I just wonder if others had similar experiences with their healthcare team, and how you kind of dealt with that kind of feeling about the cancer.
I had somewhat similar. So when I was first told about my diagnosis, they told me I was a stage 3. After meeting with my oncologist a couple times, I decided to get a second opinion, just based off he wasn't listening to some of the things I wanted and what were important to me. So I decided to get a second opinion. And when I did, at the cancer center I'm at now, they had told me that not all of my organs were scanned correctly. Like half of my liver wasn't scanned, things like that. So they redid the scans, and that's when they told me I was actually stage 4. But when they had told me about my stage 3 diagnosis at the previous, they were basically saying the same thing. Like, this is going to be hard, but you're going to get through it and you're going to be okay. Like, that's kind of what they were just telling me. So in my mind, when I was told about my stage 4, I was still thinking the same thing. Like, I'm going to get through it, get past it, and my life is going to go on. I didn't know at that time, still in my mind, the extent of a stage 4 diagnosis.
So just having that really, the most basic information, really understanding what that diagnosis is, was a really important piece that was missing from the care that you received. Did anyone else want to add anything about that? I saw a couple of heads nodding.
Well, the only thing I was just going to say, same as Savannah, I was diagnosed at 3, and then mine's hormone positive. So I thank God that I advocated for myself, because the OBGYN that I had back then, the oncologist had told me, it goes to your bones and your ovaries. And I was getting my monthly, I always confuse it, Sameta or Zoleta, one of the two. I'm sorry. And and I just thought, well, I don't need my ovaries. I already have my son, and just get them removed. And my OBGYN did not want to get them removed. He's like, you're still young. I was 41. And I said, well, no, I'm older. I can just take them out. And then thankfully, the other OBGYN in the same practice decided, okay, yeah, let's just take them out. And thankfully, I kept on pushing, because if not, I wouldn't have known I had it in one of my ovaries, and I would have, who knows where I would be. I may not have been here talking to you guys. So I thank God that I did advocate for that.
It's really important. And, we've talked in a lot of the different sessions over the day today about what advocacy means. And it doesn't always mean advocating on behalf of other people. Sometimes it means advocating on behalf of yourself and just asking those questions to, if something doesn't feel right, or you just know your body and you know something's not right. So really appreciate you saying that, Roxana. And you had started talking a little bit about side effects and the impact that side effects have had in your life. And just wanted to turn to that for this group and find out a little more about how the side effects of treatment have impacted your life. And I think, Shanta, there was something that this has been important for you, and wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, so my first round of treatment, I was on TCHP. Wonderful, no side effects. I was really heavy. I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna be a fox, like, nah, that didn't happen. So, but luckily I got through that, no side effects, no anything. Then I had progression. And so my second round of treatment, and like you said, my hair had grown back. So of course, change of treatment, hair gone again. And so I've like experienced neuropathy, and I'm on Trodelvy now, which is fairly new, just came out about a year ago. And I started it right when it came out. And this is the most side effects I have ever had in the past 9 years. It's trying, those on Trodelvy gives you horrible diarrhea. And it's been an adjustment. It's been a year. I'm still not used to it. I don't think I'll ever get used to it. But I know that it's a necessary evil for me to be here. So I just try to, as best as I can, live my life around that. But oh, the side effects. I've never experienced them, but I feel like I'm experiencing all the side effects now for the past 8 years that I've never had none. So it's been a trying year, so to say.
What have others done? How have others had to adapt your life to side effects, similar to what Shanta's discussing? I know some of you have talked about hair loss. You've talked about nausea. What are some adjustments that you've had to make as a result of side effects from your treatment? And did you want to address that?
Yeah, I think, some of the adjustments, the neuropathy, it's harder to walk when the neuropathy is really bad. And that had been my outlet. I felt like I could contain the stress and deal with my emotions if I could just get out and be in nature and walk for a couple miles a day. And, when that gets taken away and you're laying on the couch, and then it seems like the fatigue sets in even more. I think that was really hard, and it kind of comes and goes. I feel like in some ways you have to keep pushing the envelope a little bit just to see, has it gotten better enough that I can go a half mile or I can go a mile, and so that I've gotten back to some of it. And so I think that, there's things like that. Definitely with the food and this GI issues and stomach, not going out to dinner like I used to. Not, I can tell you where every public restroom is in the entire North Raleigh area here. And that's just humiliating and embarrassing. So sometimes it's just easier to stay home. And, I feel like I'm becoming a little bit more of a hermit through some of this. Like Shanta said, I'm also on Trodelvy, and yeah, it is nonstop, and that's really unfortunate. They've got to fix that somehow.
Yes.
But it's a necessary evil. So yeah, manage through it.
Yeah, I know with GI issues, they're really common in a lot of the newer medicines that are given. So exciting things that help lengthen life. And it's always a balance. And I'm wondering whether any of you have ever either switched a treatment or had a decreased dose and had to have a conversation with your healthcare professional in order to manage side effects. Is that something any of you have experienced?
I
did.
actually,
Oh, Savannah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
When I was NED for a little while, I was on anastrozole, and I couldn't handle the joint pain anymore. I couldn't do it. So they had switched me to letrozole, but I was in pain like every day. And I think they had given me pain meds and things like that, but it was just so bad that like I just didn't want to get up. Like I was just in pain. It was miserable. I had to get off of it. I had to get off. And they did. They switched me off. And he said, some people can handle one or the other better. And so we tried the letrozole for me, and I was able to tolerate it a little bit better.
So what kind of things were you able to bring that directly to your provider, or did your provider ask questions of you to draw out your concerns?
Yeah, so each appointment they would ask, is there anything new? And I just kept telling them over time, like, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. And at the point he just said, okay, let's switch you and see if this one works better for you. I think I was scared to switch though, because I'm always scared to try something new that's working. And he's like, it's pretty much the same thing, so it will be fine. I'm like, okay, let's try it then.
I'm so glad that you said that, Savannah, because that's a really common concern for people. If the treatment's working for me, why would I change it? So just goes to show the importance of that dialogue with a doctor that you trust to be able to talk you through a really, really challenging decision. So that's one really important relationship, and all of you have important relationships in your life. And so I wanted to shift the conversation a bit to how you share and explain your metastatic breast cancer diagnosis to people who are important in your life. So Roxana, why don't we start with you? When you needed to share your diagnosis with the people around you, say a parent, how did you share that diagnosis, and how did you explain what you were going through?
Well, matter of fact, I shared it with my father the day after I had my ovaries removed, because that's when I found out I was in the ER because I was in pain. My legs were bothering me; they were in pain, and I was by myself. And that's when the oncologist had called me to tell me this. So I said, "Please come to the ER and be with me." And I told him, and he was in shock, and he was like, "So what does 4 mean?" And I'm like, "Well, it's passed from one location to the other, and you know." So is that like still, like your early stager? And I'm like, no, 5 is you're no longer here. And he was devastated. Um, and I just try to educate my dad, because my mom's no longer living, and my stepmom and my sisters. I have 2 younger sisters as well, and just try to explain to them what metastatic is, and to make sure they get mammograms and make sure they get checked. And you guys they don't want to go through the same thing I'm going through. So I just try to always have them with me if I am advocating in something. It's like, okay, can you guys come and be present so you can learn as well? So they try to be as well present to get educated about MBC.
Thanks, Roxana. Savannah, I know you've been in a long-term relationship with someone who is now your husband. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how you were able to explain this diagnosis? Is really challenging to have to tell a partner that you have stage 4 breast cancer.
Yeah, so we had already been dating for a while when I was diagnosed. He knew I had done the biopsy, things like that. So we were both really eager to get the results. So when I had to call him at work and tell him, well, he was waiting for the call. So I just knew that he wanted it and he wanted it at work. So I called him, told him, and of course it was just like, what do we do next? What do we do from here? So I think it's still, it was hard relationship wise for us, just to, we were both young. And so just trying to navigate this life together, and how it shifted our relationship a little bit. Of now it's, me, doctor's appointments constantly, and like me not feeling good, like things like that. So we've just had to, be really honest with each other. And at one point I did have to tell him, like, we were just dating, and I was just like, if you want to leave, please leave now, because like I don't want to deal with the heartbreak later. Like, this is going to be really hard, I know it is, and I don't want to continue this relationship and just leave later in the middle of things when I'm going through it all or whatever. And he was like, I'm not going anywhere, so it's just a lot of communication between us. And he doesn't always get to go to appointments with me, so I have to just kind of come back and tell him all the information. So he'll ask questions, and I'll just kind of have to update him on everything.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you had a positive experience with your partner. I'm wondering whether anyone's had an experience where there was someone who came through for them that they were not expecting in their kind of community circle.
I did. I had a friend, and I mean, we were good friends in high school, but like we weren't super close. But his family had completely stepped up for me. I have gone to anything, like any fundraiser that I do, like to help out, or they're just like send me little gifts here and there. Like they're just make sure that they can help in any way that they can. And like I said, I didn't know his family all that well. I just kind of knew him through high school, and yeah, they just completely stepped up for me. And from day one until still now, they still do.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So we have a question from an audience member who has a child in her life, and she's wondering about resources that some of you may have found for talking with children, either as a parent or as an aunt. And Anne, I know that you have some children in your life, and I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you've talked with them over time about your diagnosis and any resources that you have found that were helpful.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think most of us probably live for our kids or our partner or someone else. Like that's what keeps us going forward. And when I was first diagnosed in 2009, my daughters, I have twins, they were in kindergarten, or they weren't quite in kindergarten. So it was pretty easy to keep everything really high level. And the beauty about young children at that age is they also can't get on Google. They don't know how to research for themselves. So when it progressed in 2016, they were in 6th grade, and they were a lot more sophisticated. And one of my good friends also has stage 4 cancer. And so as soon as we said stage 4, they asked what stage it was. We weren't going to tell them. And they asked, and because they'd had enough cancer discussions around our kitchen table by that time, they speak it pretty fluent. And so we were honest with them, and they both knew right away what that meant, and they were terrified. And at that time, we signed them up for Camp Kesem, which was a huge blessing for them. They went and they had a food fight. They lit the little bags, kind of like Relay for Life. They, just were able to bond with other kids whose parents had cancer, and most of the counselors' parents had cancer. And so Kesem was a huge thing for them throughout middle school and early high school. Um, and then I would say we maybe blew it here recently. We've had significant progression in December, right before the holidays, and they've driven me to my appointments here lately. So when we came home, they asked some questions about what our appointment had been like, and my husband and I were just shell shocked, and we were probably a little bit more honest with them than we should have been, because we'd heard not just from the doctor that we went for the second opinion from, but we heard from both doctors that we needed to get my affairs in order. And I have leptomeningeal disease, and it's been a really rough year. And we were honest with them. And mentally, I think we would have been better off if we would have prepared ourselves a little bit better for that discussion. But I think we were just so shocked that we maybe blew it, and now we're trying to make sure that they've got the therapies in place to help take care of them. Inheritance of Hope has been another organization that's been really important to our family. We were fortunate enough to go on one of the retreats before COVID.
Hurry up.
And then we've also been able to, they've stayed connected to some of the women and men and women there that they've met. And that's been really important for them too. But you don't always get it right the first time, and that's unfortunate. But I think we have to give ourselves some grace that we're muddling our way through this too. And it's emotional and it's heavy. And as much as I try and put on a great face every day, they know that there are days that mom just can't be at a certain event or can't do things. And they've learned a lot more empathy than a lot of their classmates. So I take that as the one blessing out of all this.
Thank you for sharing that, Anne. And I'm really glad that you closed out with the idea of giving yourself grace, because it's never easy being a parent, and it's not possible to do it perfectly. So you just do the best you can at the time that you have. So I really appreciate that. So I want to shift to an audience question. What helped you shift from initial diagnosis and shock and constantly wondering how long you'll be around to feeling more confident that you were going to be okay? And I think I'm going to ask that of Shanta, and we'll start there and see who else would like to answer that question.
I have just learned over time to literally take everything day by day. Not that I don't look forward to the future or have, hopes for tomorrow, which I do, but I think like around 2020 when COVID first started, I was really, really like deadly sick, guys. So it has like really shifted my paradigm of thinking. So I just don't hold back nothing anymore. And it's crazy because I probably should have been living like this, but I was always putting everybody else first and putting everything off. And it just has really taught me that tomorrow is really not promised. So, like right now, if there's something that I want to do, if I don't have the means to do it right now, I plan ahead and I do it soon. Um, when you guys are talking about relationships and things like that, it's strange because when I have those close people, my close knit people that look at me, they're like, "Oh, you look so well. Like, there's nothing going on. You're fine." I said, "That may be true, but I put myself together every day I may look great on the outside, but that doesn't mean I'm always feeling well on the inside." So it's just even when I don't feel well, I just always try to put my best foot forward. I don't put off nothing anymore. If I want to do it, I make sure I get it done and do it. And it's cancer and COVID has taught me that. You know,
Thank you, Shanta. Would anyone else like to address that audience question?
I'd have to agree with Shanta as well. I've learned so much going through this journey. I'm I feel like I've gone from night and day from 2015 till now. I appreciate things. I do what I can today and
Mhm.
try to live to the fullest day to day and make memories, and try to make sure that my most close loved ones that I have surrounding me know that every time I make memories with them or we just go for walks, like for my son, he'll be like, "We're gonna go grab some ice cream," and he's like, it's not just the ice cream, mom, but it's actually as well the memory that we're walking together to go get some ice cream. So he's learned a lot. He's not your typical 13-year-old. He appreciates day by day, and I'm appreciative about him learning that because he did take a 6-week session from the beginning. And he goes also to a Camp Kesem, which is a great organization. And even though he doesn't know what stage I am, but I think that's helped him see life in a different way and learned just to enjoy every day that he has mom and mom that has energy to go walking with him or do things. So, and just do self care. It's so important to, you know, back in 2015, before this diagnosis, I was always putting everybody first. And now finally took this unfortunate situation to learn to put myself first before anybody else.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Roxana. And I think both you and Shanta sort of talked about centering yourselves, being present in the moment. And I'm wondering if maybe Savannah, you could talk a little bit about what are some specific things you do to that? What are some specific ways that you help yourself to be present um, and to care for yourself, to recenter yourself?
Well, I just in the beginning I had a really hard time just like giving myself that grace. Like if I didn't feel good, that day or whatever, I still wanted to like keep going. And I've learned that it's better for me to kind of take the rest I need in order to enjoy the day better or the next day, because if I did too much, I was on, in bed for more days than if I would have taken that rest. Sometimes I just need to get out and get fresh air to clear my head or just, feel the breeze. And, it's just finding the little things that help you. So yeah, I would definitely give myself grace more now than I have in the beginning.
Thank you. And what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say journaling. Some of the just to be able to spend some time being present and being grateful, and I think it captures so many things for me. It's definitely one of the ways that I find my personal time, but it's also in some ways, it's creating that legacy for the kids because I try and capture a lot of what's going on. But in other ways, it's my way of just vomiting out. Here's what's going on in life, and here's what I'm afraid of, and here's what I'm excited about, and spending time with that each day has definitely made a difference and given me more time to pause.
Mhm.
So, Anne, were you someone who journaled before your diagnosis, or was that something that you discovered in trying to find ways of coping?
I wrote a little bit before my diagnosis, but it's definitely been a coping mechanism over the last 6 years. I would say before it was pretty hit or miss and would go for a month or two and then I put it away. But I saw in the chat, people are talking about some of the journals that are out there that you can do the legacy ones and answer the questions. And, you know, I think that those are just fantastic ways to leave a mark and to feel a little bit better about what you're doing while still laying on the couch with your feet up and ice on your feet if that's what you need that day. It seems to accomplish several things. So.
Great. And are there other things that other of you have discovered, things that maybe you didn't do before your diagnosis that you have found comfort you now and that help support you and sustain you?
I would say my 6 times a week walks for 4 miles has helped me mentally, just be out there and get some fresh air and enjoy nature, has made a difference for me. And I'm thankful that I can, still be able to walk that distance, if not more, and still get out of bed. And sometimes I have to push my son and tell him, let's go for a walk. And he's like, no. I'm like, one day mom's not going to be able to get out of bed and you're going to want to walk and I'm not going to be able to walk. So I try to encourage him to come walk and he's like, okay, fine. It's kind of a push, but then he realized it was a good idea. So I'm thankful that I'm able to do that still.
That's great. And I know some of you in your bios mentioned that you had pets and that you were pet moms. And I wonder whether your pets have been something that has sustained you during your treatment.
Yes, mine have. I have 2 miniature Dachshunds. Before I was diagnosed, I had only one, and he went through with me through college and everything. And so it was I want to say probably about a month or 2 weeks before I was diagnosed. I don't remember, but he would always just like cling to me. And I remember being on the phone with my mom one day, and I was just like, is there something wrong with me? Like, he will not leave my side. And later I ended up getting my diagnosis. So he's just always just, I don't know, I just have this connection with him. So yeah, they have helped keep me through too.
Thank you. So I know a number of you have mentioned that you decided to set aside your careers or your jobs because side effects made it too difficult and treatments made it difficult. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to how your diagnosis may have changed your life's focus and your perspective. And I think I'll turn to Shanta first because I think when you opened, you were talking about how you were a nurse and that right after your diagnosis, you decided not to work anymore. So tell me a little bit about how it changed your life's focus.
Mm-hmm. So I was lucky enough to after my first round of treatment, I went back and finished nursing school, and I became an oncology nurse. So it gave me focus, to learn more, to focus on oncology, and through that, I have learned. I was doing advocacy during nursing, so I had this horrible experience where I had to stop working again, and advocacy now is such a big part of what I do. I'm not working anymore, but I find that, how you say your path is kind of predestined, but I find that now it's like I'm advocating in every chance that I get, because I know there are some people who, like you said, don't know when to speak up for themselves. Um, that's an issue that I find. Also, now since I'm not working, I have the time to be more of a support for other people that are going through what I've gone through, that are earlier in their diagnosis and everything. I do a lot of work with the support groups in my area, and I've also in the process of trying to start my own support system as well for women in my area. So advocacy is like advocacy and support. I mean, it's so important, and it's my path. I feel has been predestined to go in that situation. Um, I'm not being paid for, but I'm so passionate about it. So it doesn't even matter at this point because I just want to see everybody win and everybody have the support that they need to make it through. So.
Thank you, Shanta. I also wanted to follow up. I know for a number of you, your faith is really important. And I'm wondering if one of you would like to speak on the role of faith in helping you cope with your diagnosis?
That's a murky one. Nobody wants to jump in. I'll give it a try. I think my church community has been so important to me, and I've learned so much from them. And I think that, having time set aside for prayer and, our church is really active in that we do a lot of service, and it's given me an opportunity to still be able to serve others that have nothing to do with cancer. And that's been a breath of fresh air sometimes. A lot of times we're doing a lot of feeding of the hungry. And, it's something that's been important to me my entire life. And I think that through the church and my faith and being able to be my hands and feet and to be able to get out there, that's been something that's just been, it kind of helped normalize some of this. At the same time, I've also been one who, especially, knowing what my white blood cell counts are and how immunocompromised I'll sneak into the back of the service and I'll sneak out early so that I don't get inundated. And that's kind of juggling everything there. But, I think that my faith has grown. It's been tested, but it's definitely been a big part of helping me sleep better at night.
Thanks for addressing that, Anne. So we only have a couple more minutes left. So I'm going to pose a last question to each of you, and I'll call on you. So if you could go back in time and speak to your newly diagnosed self, what is the one piece of advice that you would give yourself at that time, now knowing what you know? And I'm going to start with Roxana.
I would say, if I could go back, that the hope that I have, the faith that I have that I'm going to be here to see my son graduate high school and hopefully go to college. I didn't have that hope back then, so that has definitely been a difference.
Thank you, Roxana. Savannah?
I would say I would tell myself that, it's going to get hard. It will be hard, but it's still going to be okay. You're going to have a great support system to help make those days better when you don't feel like you can get through it.
Thank you, Savannah. Shanta?
I will just say, continue to give away what you need. Continue to be the support for those around you. Slow down and get some rest, because I'm horrible at resting because my mind is constantly going. So sleep, take some time and go to sleep.
Good practical advice. Thank you, Shanta. And Anne, let's end with you.
I would probably tell myself that you can't jump from mountaintop to mountaintop. You're going to have to go through those valleys, and but there's still, there's a mountain to climb, and you have the people with you and the tools at your disposal to get it done, and to trust other people that their intentions are pure and good, and that they want to help, and maybe let them help a little earlier in some of the diagnosis and changes and evolutions of medications and whatnot and treatment plans. And just to love so much on those people around you that mean the most to you, your immediate family, your extended family, a best friend, your cat, your dog, whatever that looks like, because you don't get those second chances.
Thank you. And I really want to thank all of you. Many thanks, Savannah and Shanta and Roxana, for sharing your experiences and your vulnerability and your advice with our community. This has been a great conversation. And so I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all of you who are with us today for spending your time.